Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Mask Off. I am Kim.
And I'm Tia.
And today we are going to talk about a very difficult topic, one that's super hard for me. Talk about willingness to take 100% responsibility and own your crap. Like this is a hard one because, whoa, oh my goodness. So I was a stay-at-home mom for 22 years. My son is 22, almost 23. And you were home with your girls. They're 21 now, right?
They're 21. I did
21.
part-time stuff in there, but I was always, when they were home, I was home. My part-time stuff was always when they were at school or out of the house.
Gotcha. So our main roles were motherhood. And that's what we want to talk about today, but I'll start with the quote as we normally do. So the quote is short and simple and sweet, but so loaded and has so much wisdom behind it.
It's going to be hard to keep this episode short, but we'll probably talk about it a couple times.
Yes, exactly. I think there are many layers to this topic for sure. So the quote is, not only does overparenting hurt our kids, it harms us too. Oh,
right in the heart.
By Julie Lythcott-Haims. And why does that hurt so much? Because, wow, like I really felt like when I was in role of motherhood, that what I was doing, and I did overparent. I was the helicopter mom, the lawnmower mom, the snowblower mom, whatever you want to call it, so enmeshed. Right? Because I grew up with such codependency in my life.
Yeah.
My mom was so overly enmeshed with my sister and I that was the norm, seemed normal and what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And it also felt like kind of were like a badge of honor. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to care about my kids this much. I'm supposed to take care of them. I'm supposed to like overparent. Because in a lot of ways, even though I did say my mom was enmeshed and like overly involved emotionally, but for the most part, and I know you shared, you grew up this way. It was like when I wasn't in school, it was the weekend or summertime, in the morning, went out on my little green bike with my basket. I went out on my bike, and off I went, and I was gone all day.
Right.
And my mom, I'd pop in for lunch, or if I wanted to have a Kool-Aid stand, I'd pop in and make some Kool-Aid. But for the most part, I was just off.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a ton of parenting per se going on. So
no helicoptering for sure.
No helicoptering at all. Like my mother, didn't say, oh, did you do your homework? Or, let me help you study. Or any of that stuff. Like when I did schoolwork, that was on me. If I joined a club, I chose it, blah, 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 blah. So there was no overparenting in that respect. So maybe that's part of why our generation went to the opposite extreme of overparenting.
Right.
So I'm going to take my mask off and then I'll turn it over to you to share your example. But I am fully taking my mask off, and I think I shared this one before, but this one hits to the heart of how it harms us too, right? Because we lose ourselves as parents when we are overly parenting.
Right.
And I remember when my son was playing Pop Warner football. Did I share this one before?
It's not ringing a bell. So
okay.
And even if you have, it's always good to hear stories again.
Okay. So when my son was playing Pop Warner football, I remember taking my fold-up chair to every single practice. And let me tell you that they practice for like 3 hours, 3 times a week. And I would sit there and watch like his every move. I was so invested in how well he did.
So you didn't even bring a book or anything?
Oh no. I didn't even want to talk to parents unless I felt it was going to serve him in some way. Like the coach's wife, or then I would, like, I'm taking my mask off like fully, because this is so bad. This is how overparenting I was. And I would talk to the coach, and be friendly or whatever the case was, because Ryan, my son at the time, he was quiet, he was shy, and he wasn't going to assert himself. And even though he, was very athletic and he was very good, that he just wasn't one to speak up and be seen.
And how
So
old
I
was
had
he for this?
11, 11 or 12. So I had to make sure he was seen so he could play and get playtime and start. And then I made sure when he was 13 years old, still his last year of Pop Warner, I paid for him to have work with a private trainer to get extra speed, to work on this and that and everything. Oh my God, it was so, and then I would go to those sessions and I would watch intently. And then I was like one of the dads, how they always talk about dads at baseball games and basketball games yelling at the refs. That's how bad I was. I so lost myself. Where I was trying to like identify myself.
Exactly.
Or have a sense of worthiness within me through him.
Right.
Which I don't even understand.
You.
I was doing it for me more so.
Right. Totally. So you look like the really amazing mom.
Yeah. It wasn't for lack of it wasn't like I wanted to live through him because I didn't have those experiences at his age, because I did. I played softball and soccer. I was an athlete and I did do really well. So it's not like I needed that, but it was I needed him to be following those footsteps, number one. And then I needed to feel like I was a really good mom, because now, look at my son. He's a superstar like the other players are, or he's getting all this playtime. And when he was in his last year of Pop Warner, he broke his hand during those summer camps before the season started, but he ended up still playing with a cast and broken arm and did really well. And I know it was like, I know for those of you who are only listening and can't see us, Tia's shaking her head like, oh my God.
Not in judgment, and just in that, oh my goodness. Wow.
Oh, but it is. And I am just, because now I can laugh on it because 2020 is, and I, have really changed and turned that around.
I can't see you doing that. That's why I'm shaking my head, because it's like, oh my gosh, I can't, wow.
Oh, yeah.
How much work you have done.
And I did the same thing with my daughter when she played tennis, paid for her to have all these lessons, then with a coach to do a special kind of lesson on, getting the mental game down, like all kinds of money that I spent on these two kids with sports so that they could shine.
Wow.
And it was not for just them. That's the part that I'm taking my mask off on, and sharing that when I overparent, I lost myself. Right. Because now where was my identity? Where was me? I was so wrapped up in them and their life and being a parent and a mom. Where was me? Where was I?
Right. You were attached and identified through their accolades, their whatever. And that they had to be amazing, because then you were amazing mom.
Right. Totally. And that was my path. So they had to follow in my path. I was the superstar, the straight A student. And I learned when I was a kid that if I wasn't doing that, then I wasn't worthy enough. Right. I wasn't seen and I wasn't heard. So in order to be valued, you have to shine somehow.
And so with that information you just shared too, so there's the stuff you already shared, they needed to be amazing too. Yeah. But also you had to be the amazing mom and be seen at every practice, seen showing, not the mom sitting back chatting with other people, the mom, or with a book, the mom who's super involved. Yeah. So you could get the accolades you had when you were little of being seen and heard, and oh, look at Kim, she does so much for her kid. Oh my God, right. She's there for every practice. We know we can count on her. We know she's always going to show up. Wow.
I definitely have wore the mask of motherhood as a way of shining my light. Mm-hmm. from a place of unworthiness and lack, for sure.
Mhm.
Now, as years went on and I've done more of the work,
Right.
Angela was 12, Ryan was 15 when I came across Dr. Shafali's work. So
Yeah.
it wasn't shortly after, it was like a couple years after that I was introduced to conscious parenting and
Mhm.
then began to go inward and see, and that's why I can laugh about it now with you and
Right.
laugh here.
Right. Exactly.
Because I know now.
Yeah, and you can see it. You're totally aware of it. You understand it, where you were coming from. And we say it all the time. It's not that it doesn't show up in other ways still, right? Because it's still, that mask of motherhood is a
Yes,
sticky one, super sticky. It
is.
just likes to get back on, but not to the
Yes.
same level, not to the same extreme.
No, exactly. Not nearly.
Right.
And as we said, we'll continue to go into those other insidious layers of the mask of motherhood as time goes on, because there are so many. It is sticky one. It just
Mhm.
really wants to keep coming back on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think it's one that so many parents or moms, we're talking about mask of motherhood, but I think dads have it too, to some extent. But I think it's one that so many people struggle with.
Agreed.
So many struggle.
And not everyone, it shows up in different ways for different people, of course. And it shows up different ways at different stages your kid is in too, right?
Yeah.
Because it showed up, I'm sure, differently for you when they were 2 years old, or when Ryan was 2 versus when he was 11 playing sports on a field, so
Yeah.
recognizing it is so encompassing, and we don't even realize we're in it until we start to do the work and be like, holy moly, what is going on?
I know.
Who am I? Wait, I have no idea
Yes.
who I am without doing mothering, right?
Yeah. So what did it look like for you with
I
the
mean, we
girls?
can talk about, like, we'll talk about different layers in other episodes, but I mean, I think for me, it was once I became a mom. I mean, it even went back to pregnancy, right? So once I became pregnant, it was like, read all the books, what to expect when you're expecting and all. I mean, there's a lot better books out there now than there were back then too.
Yeah.
But still, it was like reading every book. Okay, what's going to happen when they're born? How do I show up? I just remember reading, you can't let them cry. If you let them cry, they're going to feel abandoned. So, okay. So when they cry, when they're born, I got to make sure, like, scoop them right up within 2 seconds, or else if it gets to 5 seconds, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to their mental state? Which only created more urgency for me and more mask wearing, and then I was on bed rest at halfway through my pregnancy. So it was like, I am gonna, everybody's like, how did you do it? And it's like, this is my job. I am growing these 2 babies in me. So I am going to follow doctor's orders, and I'm going to get up in the morning. I get one ability to walk down the stairs, and then I'm on that couch, except to go to the bathroom. I had my whole coffee table with snacks and pitchers of water. And then at night, then I can go back up the stairs that one time, and then I'm in bed. So literally, and I worked part-time, I couldn't work full-time on bed rest, but luckily there was the internet. It was very, so there's email, so I could do work on my laptop, but it was sideways on the couch. So I was always laying down. So I got horrible backaches, but you know what? Doesn't matter. That's what I have to do, because you got to be a good mom. You got to be a good mom. So this was happening even before they were born. I mean, I look back and, now I know they don't do bed rest like they did then, or all of that, and then once they were born, they were in the NICU. Minute I woke up, I was in the car to the hospital until it was late at night back home. Wouldn't change that for the world or anything, but it was coming from this place of, it just was that, like you were saying, from a place of lack, like, oh my gosh, how could they be in the hospital? They're supposed to be home with me. The nurses are taking care of them. How can I help? What can I do? Blah, blah, blah. And of course I had no idea about all of what that was doing with attachment and trauma, blah, blah, blah. which is probably a good thing now, you know,
I
I look
know.
back on it. But so I literally had no life, none, when they were little. You know, once they went to preschool, then it started to be like, well, who am I? What do I want to do? I don't want to go back to engineering because I did that for their first year, telecommuting, which again, when did I work? I didn't work very many hours, but I still stayed with it when they were napping. Okay, what do they tell moms? When the kids are napping, that's when you should be resting. Did I do that? No, because I could only be a mother, or I had to be a mother all the time, and I wasn't allowed to rest. I had to be on. And then it just constant reading, constant everything, making sure I made their homemade baby food. They aren't going to eat anything out of a jar or this, you know, I mean, it was like obsessive.
Yeah.
Obsessive.
Yeah.
And where was I in that process? Nowhere to be found. Nowhere. Completely lost. So for me, it was, I didn't even let them breathe. I mean, I did, but you know what I'm saying? It was like,
Yeah.
I was so worried about doing everything perfectly. So my whole perfection mask was intertwined with my motherhood mask. And then I can share in other episodes, you know, toddlerhood, how it showed up in other ways and through, even with the
Yeah.
conscious parenting work, right? That motherhood mask just goes whoop,
Right back on.
right back on in certain, you know, because a wound was being triggered in me. So wait, I'm not being a good mom. How do I be a good mom? How do I show up? I didn't have, you know, so mine looked a little different. They didn't play sports.
Yeah.
Except for soccer, like when they were 6.
Yeah.
Thing for a year. And then did a little cross country I think it was freshman year. I don't remember, but didn't last very long. So anyway, so yeah, it's interesting when we take that step back and realize when we give it all, we have nothing left to give.
I know. And then for me, there was such guilt attached if I
Total.
wasn't being the perfect motherhood. There was so much guilt. Like you shared, you read that don't let them cry 8 seconds and pick them up. I was reading something totally different that said when Ryan was 8 months old and I was trying to get him off the pacifier, just let him cry it out. You know, that was Ferberizing. That was Dr. Ferber. Like
Right.
you got to let him cry it out. So that's what I did. And that was, you know, to me, that was awful. But then you start to feel guilt. I felt a ton of guilt
Yep.
of I'm not doing it well. So, or
Right.
perfect, you
Right.
know, or I'm ruining him somehow. What am I, you know, that was the thing.
Totally.
I'm ruining my kids. So and I just only doubled down in my efforts to
Exactly.
be more of a perfect mother, wear that mask even tighter
Yep.
as they, you know, grew up, and then losing myself even more and even more.
Right. Right. And, you know, you talked about the reflection of their athleticism in the sports.
Yeah.
And it showed up a lot for me because I was an only child. So I didn't understand, and we can talk about this more in another episode, but like the sibling dynamics, I thought that I was screwing up as a mom, that they would fight. And it's like, so
Oh,
it was
yeah.
my fault. What am I doing wrong? What is wrong with me? Why can't my daughters, identical twins on top of that, even though I never like called them the twins or I never dressed them the same, it's like, you guys spent 7 months inside of me next to each other, and why, you know, you hate each other in this moment. You know, they didn't, but like normal sibling stuff was to me a reflection that I screwed up, I did something wrong. Or they would love each other every moment of the day and share beautifully and never get in fight. I mean, it's the pressure.
Yeah.
The pressure.
Pressure. And the other thing that I'm hearing from both of us in both our stories, and I'm sure this is true for so many that are listening, is it's expectations.
Totally.
Expectations that we put on ourselves, and the expectation, which most likely came from society and cultural conditioning, that this is how it should be. Like your daughter should not fight. My son should excel in sports in order to be seen and valued, or follow in my footsteps, whatever, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
It's expectations.
Right.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
I know. So that was awesome. So much more to talk about, and we will continue to talk about this in future episodes, because I think that so many can relate.
Yeah. And I think too, showing, I mean, I shared the perfectionism mask, how it showed up in my motherhood mask. So the motherhood mask may look different for someone else based on what their other prominent masks look like, so it's interesting, the overlap of the motherhood mask.
Yeah, completely. Okay. And you feel complete?
I do.
Awesome.
Whew.
So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And as always, if you do like what you heard in this episode, we would love and appreciate a like or a thumbs up, or even subscribe. And we will see you next time on Masks Off.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.